presentation. I talk about my work today, and I brought you some images, and I think I understood already a lot what you did, what you said about me, that theater is one of my main interests, and which is interesting for me because I started to study stage design in Karlsruhe, and it was very open. But I mean, I started with theater, and then I switched to art because I thought art is much more interesting than theater. And since a couple of years, theater is coming back into my work, which is a nice discovery for me to see that what I did first, I'm quite nourished by this still now. And the first image, what you see here, that was one of my first performances with the singing, and I started filming with 60mm films, and first Super 8 film, and I filmed tableaux vivants. That means I put people together in tableau, in like images, or first also after paintings, and they stood still for the length of an 8mm or 60mm roll. It's like 2.5 minutes about. And they had to stand still for this time, and then I projected them. And I wanted to translate this to performance, but then I needed the length of the performance, and I didn't want to make something exhausting that the person has to stand until he cannot stand anymore and falls from the stage. So I had the idea to use music, because music has a beginning and the end. And this was my first performance with music, and I composed a piece, which this guy, I mean, actually, I don't know if you doubt, there are two actors in this position, and the actor is singing a song, and the song is at the length of the performance. And of course, the curtain is also, it's opening, the start, and I mean, like in classical theater. And now this is, I start by, this is like 6 days ago, opening, and then I go back in time. It's on right now in Rome in a gallery, and the show is called, or this work is called Eigenschatten, which means my own shadow. I mean, Eigenschatten means the shadow which is made by an object himself, the Eigenschatten. And there are 6 objects hanging on the ceiling, and you see the shadows of these objects on these 6 fabrics. So there is on the left is a costume, then there is a triangle, like a hat, a chair, circles, bamboo sticks, and a roll. And I was trying, because I'm living for 1 year in Rome. And I was so impressed by the sun in the summer. It was so hot, and I couldn't stand it. And the sun was really something I discovered this summer. So I wanted to do something with the sun, and I laid fabric on the roof to let dry it out by the sun. But and then I had this idea, but then the sun was already away. Then it was already winter, so I had to find a new what can substitute the sun. And I discovered chlor. So this is done by chlor, but I wanted to have this dyed out by sun effect. And these are the objects which are hanging on the ceiling with little rolls. And my idea was to put them like in theater props probably could hang, to pull them up and pull them down if they are needed. And at the same time, it's like it could be also seen like a puppet theater of objects. Yeah, this is this costume. This is like the like the actor or like the human being in all these objects, and then the objects are kind of props. What could this actor or this person could do? So this is the person, and then this is a hat, bamboo sticks, a roll, and rings for juggling. This is also still visible in the Palais de Tokyo in Paris. The Palais de Tokyo opened a whole etage new underneath the old Palais de Tokyo, and this is somehow the center space. And I wanted to do a space which is like a stage, but at the same time a stage which reminds a bit to 70s architecture, like 70s futuristic architecture, like the house, I don't know if you know the house of Pierre Cardin at the Côte d'Azur. Everything is round, like bubbles, and it's about cocooning. And this work is called King of a Death. Death of a King, sorry. Death of a King, and I used two structures, two ramps of skateboards, and this was on one hand the idea to repeat this kind of cocooning architecture, but on the other hand I like the idea that outside of the Palais de Tokyo there are a lot of skateboarders, and to take them inside and to invite the skateboarders to make their skateboards inside. But then it was, they can't do the same things. It wasn't for security things, it was not possible. There were some skateboarders, but it was clandestine. But it's also a stage, so it's actually a double stage, because behind you have a little step, and you are on this stage, and in this pattern of these diamonds, which is a patchwork and a pattern of the clown, or in German it's not the clown, it's more the antipoda of the king, who is allowed to tell the king the truth. And this is also the idea that, and the pattern of his costume, of this clown, is this patchwork where all people of a society are equal. So there are no difference anymore in society. So this is, for me, it was like a utopistic space. We don't need anymore a king, and we are equal, and in the same time, it's a stage. And the sketch for this stage I did with the watercolor, and I was lucky to have good painters, and they did this effect of watercolor with acrylic color on the wood, on this plywood. And you see like drippings, and in the same time there is some Rorschach situations in the pattern, this mirroring. Here you see the projection of the film is Mirror Song, which I will show also here in kiosk. And on this image it's in London in a gallery. And Mirror Song, I filmed twice a scene inside a mirror, and the second time the actors are playing everything what they played firstly on the right, like this, they play in the second. Everything is mirrored, they play mirrored. And I wanted also to flip the upside and down in this space. So this is a fabric ceiling, a patchwork with stripes, which are getting more and more narrow in the back, and also it makes a curve that you have this perspective feeling. And it's a kind of landscape. I was inventing the landscape, which is getting to the sky more and more blue and more like light. So also the floor is flipped to the sky. And the fabric piece, I called it sail, because at the same time it was attached to the wall with strings, and it reminds also to like a blown sail. This was the same show in the downstairs. There is this quilt I will show also here, and some ribbon works. The ribbon is something which appears a lot in my work, and the ribbon in Baroque is the connection between two worlds. It can be this world and the world of the dead, but it can be also other worlds, of course. And here, for example, this ribbon, I wanted to have a reminding of a ribbon from firework. Sorry?
Fire brigade?
Yes. Yes. And so there are these two ribbons, and in the same time there is this link, connection, like two persons, like the wall. And here are ribbons. These are cutouts, and it's always positive, negative. It's also kind of what I like, a kind of economy of material, that I use the positive and the negative. And it's a knot, which is, this is a ribbon, but it's in the same time it's a knot which can be deleted or not. This is a stick which was live on a wall with its shadow, and the shadow is a tie. This reminds perhaps a bit of Magritte, or also Hans Bellmer, I know this futurist artist. But I think I thought of Magritte. And this is a cutout. This is cut directly in an old map, and it's bats flying in the sky. This is a shelf with Greek masks, which has a connection to the film which I show here, Mirror Song, where they sing a lot about having masks, or when do you have a mask, or when do we play a role, and what kind of role have you, and from where is it role which you're playing, and what kind of mask do you have, or do you have many masks. This was shown last year in Nuremberg, and it's shown right now in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and it's this is an 18-meter long painted canvas, and I painted a landscape on it, and it's like a snail. So you go inside and you go to the center, and in the center there is a film projected, KASKlezing. This film I shot in Sweden, and in this film there is a wanderer, a guy coming to a family who is wandering for a long time through in a landscape, and he's coming to this family and mixing up a lot the family structure. And I wanted that if visitors come to this architecture, that they make in a way the same way the wanderer did, and see some of the landscapes he saw before you enter the main space in the center and you see the film. And this is like a collage of all kind of landscapes which are existing: forests, sea, mountains, mud. And then in the center, this is the film Vorspiel, where I wanted to show you one little excerpt. The film is 10 minutes long, but we only see 2 minutes now. Speaker. Malmö in a performance art center, and and then I wanted to translate the performance into a film. And in the performance, there were these actors in the center of the stage, and around there were the choir, which you hear. And they are not singing, of course. They're only moving their mouth to the voice of the choir. And I wanted to. I mean, I worked a lot before already with music in film and with playback. I never used the original sound. Or I let the actors never singing, but I wanted to use the singing of the choir. So there's a choir of men and women, and when the women are singing, the women of the choir are singing, the man is the man, and then and it's always unisono. That means they sing like one note. But when the choir is singing like in Greek theater, like as the society or like the consciousness, then it's polyphone and it's women and men singing together. And then you also hear, there was once the choir was singing a question, where did you come from? So nobody from the family had the idea to ask him where he comes from. So this is the choir, like the society doing. And also in Greek theater, the choir also as a consciousness, like also to tell the story, to make long things short. Like, okay, what you saw now is there was a wanderer coming, he had a box with him, but you don't know what is in the box. Like to make this, I like this, but also the choir as an echo, because in Greek theater, because it was so big, they needed this echo to understand what they say. And then also psychologically, seeing the choir as if a woman opens her mouth and 6 women voices come out of her mouth, to think, yeah, these are the 6 personalities of this person. And I was inventing the story. The story is very simple, that the guy is coming with his box and he's telling his story. He found the box and he went to a fairy tale story, how he found this box, and he gives the box to the old lady because she seems a bit ill and dement. Perhaps she needs this box. And then he falls in love with her daughter, and she hopes, wow, now finally I can get out of this family, out of this house, the house which is drawn, as you saw, like a white square on the floor in this forest. But then in the end, because there's this knot, this kind of family knot, everybody has to delete in the family, every member, and in the end it's him who is deleting the knot. So he stays in the family, and she is looking in the end out and says, shit, again my chance is over, I don't get out of this family. And what was interesting for me with this work was the camera, because as I told you in the beginning, I was filming tableau vivants. That means persons are not moving, and the camera was on a tripod. And then after small, I was moving a bit more. In this film, I had a very good Steadicammer. It was the Steadicammer from Lars von Trier, in a Danish Steadicammer, and he proposed me something to do to turn around the whole time around the family, and also when there's the love song between him and the girl, to make like a 180 degree, which is so emotionalizing. And for me it was interesting to how much you can emotionalize by the movement of the camera. And this is the tent where I showed the first time the film Shadow Play, which I will break very fast still, because you see the film on Friday. It's a film where I wanted to have only the shadows. And again, when I make films, I mean, I love filming people, actors, but I try always to cut at least one information. That means at Chorspiel, I cut the voices. You don't hear how the real voice is. With the tableau vivants first, I cut the voice and the movement, so you don't know how they move. And here I cut I mean, everything visible, and the persons, the characters, they sing the first time with their own voices in this film, but you don't see them really. You only see the shadows. And the situation is that three actors are meeting behind the curtain before they have their representation, and they're singing about the life of actors and how shitty it is always to play the same role, and we're here in this small theater but we wanted to go in a bigger theater, and why are we doing this? I'm fed up with this role, and then also what is a role? And I mean, for me also the theater as a mirror, of course, where are we playing, or what kind of play are we playing? And then they're dressing up in costumes, but in the end they are just they're not even playing themselves. They're just playing a puppet theater where the puppets have the same costume as them, and they just repeat what they repeated. And this is something I did a lot in films, this kind of theater in a theater in a theater. It's also like I mean, there are also a lot of filmic examples, of course, where actors play actors. I mean, this is a really interesting construction. This is also a mask, a theater mask, a cutout of a theater mask, of a donkey, and positive and negative. This is Carnival in Black Forest. And this is a carnival dress. Oh, this is paper glued on a patchwork of paper. This is a tie which is cut. I think it was yesterday, where in Germany the women are allowed to cut the ties of the men. Where there's one day in Carnival there. I mean, it's like Carnival is the flipped. That the laws are flipped and we can do all things we don't do. Normally, the women have the right to cut the tie, and it's also this kind of inversion of laws. This don't exist here in Belgium. No.
Carnival.
Carnival? No, this is Carnival.
Yeah, but cutting ties.
Huh? Cutting ties? No. Okay.
It's a good idea.
But I mean, at the same time, it's only to rebuild the old law. You cut once a tie, but only one day. This is the problem. And this was in the film you will see on Friday. Mirror Song, Spiegellied 1 and 2. I showed before already. This I shot in a Haussmannian flat, which is also an exhibition space in Paris, and this was how it was set up. So there is twice the same curtain, but also mirrored, and this is the mirror where I filmed the film inside, because the film is filmed in a mirror. And then every time behind this patchwork curtain, which is all about. I mean, this is a patchwork curtain I shoot of old fabrics I found, which is for me is important when I work with fabric, that every piece of fabric has somehow a history, like it comes from another context. And also, I mean, the story of patchwork, or what I think is really interesting, that there are all these little pieces of fabric which were before something else, so somehow it's this kind of decontextualization of a shirt or whatever, and it gets something new, but every piece has another history. And this was always behind this curtain, and twice the same situation, that you have this kind of déjà vu. And this is what is similar from this film to Shadow Play, what you both see, is that it's also about actors. So the actors prepare themselves somehow. They are putting makeup, and then they have a scene, but they are just singing about their state and who is playing the worst role of them, and also who has. I mean, what kind of role do you have in this society? and how much, I mean, also playing a role equal perhaps also with lying, or are you the best liar in this society? And the best liar is the one with a tie, and he got really far. I mean, he got really high, and the other is like the loser because he didn't play really well his role. This was the same show with positive and negative cutouts. And then I have this ongoing project for shows to make newspapers. In this case, it was a poster, and for this poster, I was collecting all kind of images which are important for me for one moment. But my aim was to do something about mise en abîme, it's called in French. This kind of what I told before already, the theater and the theater and the theater. And the first mise en abîme was found on an old shield, a medieval shield, what you see on the right, this little watercolor. And on the shield, it's cut in 4 parts. You see the same shield, and then in the shield, the same shield. It's like the box here downstairs, la vache qui rit. This is the most well-known mise en abîme. She had the earring of the box. And then you have the whole poster. You see it also as a small poster. Inside and the back side was a zoom to the small poster. So this is the same as, if you want, as the puppet theater play, a shadow play. And this was a show in Hamburg, in a gallery, and I found a lot of old signal flags in Brittany of boats, and I sewed a huge fabric roll together, and it's hanging from the wall like a paper roll, and it can be rolled out differently and different length concerning the space. And there are this the wood of fishing lines at the wall. And the work is called Das Versteck des WL, the hiding of WL. And for me, it's more an abstract work. It's more. I did these installations with fabric like mazes, like you saw the round thing. It's more about labyrinth and guiding yourself in a labyrinth. And this is the step, for me, is the step after I roll the fabric maze to a roll, and I just show a little bit, and then I show what you could do with that. So it's a possible hiding of a possible fictive figure, a possible house also. And then I showed the film Mammutones with a 60mm. And this is a little box that I called it Scatola Torino because I saw in a museum in Torino. It was a museum about prisoners, and there was a huge box with this tiny origami bird. What he was folding over the whole time he was in this prison, and I was so impressed of this piece because it was like a huge accumulation of time in this box. I just wanted to repeat what I saw in less good, of course, because the birds were a bit bigger and less, the box was smaller. But it's also, of course, a hiding. And these are cutouts. They were for the film. I did a film in Sardinia. I will show you also a part of it, of Mammutones, of these special figures of Carnival, and then I did these cutouts on for that. And this is another roll, similar to the flag roll, but here I dyed, it was like 100 meters of fabric, and I dyed it with 40 colors or something. And it was also the same, it was about time, which is accumulated in this roll, and I only show 3 colors, but everything is inside, and it's more not to show what I do with it, it's more to show the possibility, or to, mean, we could do with this role a lot of installations, but I don't. And this is a part of my archive, which is also kind of hiding because I don't show all my. This archive is just it's a pile and you don't see them really. And a rope, a string, a ribbon, which is also rolled and packed. This was an installation last year in the Biennale of Lyon. And I had the first piece when you came into a big space. It was the first space, and I wanted that the spectators, the visitors, come onto a stage, but from the back. So when you enter, there were 5 curtains, one after the other, and when you enter the last curtain, then normally there should come what I have here, a situation, a lot of people looking at you, but was not the case. But this kind of consciousness stepping on the stage, and what do I do here? Or I mean, it's your choice, of course. What do I do here, and what is my role, or do I want to play a role? A lot of people went around, as you can see in this image, and all the fabrics I didn't cut. I didn't want to cut, and there was one big rope, what you see here, and I just was pulling them up with a big rope that you have like many possible passages, and then there were these kind of props lying, like a ladder or also a walking stick, a rope, a bench. And the colors, actually the whole project was made for 7 colors, and I had also 7 curtains, but there was Robert Kuzmirovsky in front of me with a really big installation, and I had to cut down my installation because it was the 7 colors after Leonardo da Vinci's what is light, the 7 colors what create light after Leonardo da Vinci. But one day I will show 7 colors. And it was also the idea that you come from the black to the white curtain, a bit esoteric from the dark to the light. This is a big cutout of a forest cut in canvas. This is a film. I was invited to make an educational film for kids, and I did a film. It's called 2 Men and the Wild Boar, and it's a shadow play also, but I did it with puppets. And the film is that there is a worker, and he's working with a hammer, and then the boss is coming and says faster, and then he's doing faster. After this, he's going to a forest, the worker, and the wild boar is asking him, "You have a wish free, what do you want?" And the worker says, "I want to be the boss." And then the wild boar says, "Okay." And the next image is the chef is the worker, and the worker is the chef. And then again, the chef, the former chef, now worker, is going to the forest. "What do you want?" "I want to be the chef again." And then it's a loop, it's an ongoing loop. And this is the forest again as a big war drawing in Grenoble in a show. And here again the film Montonus, where I show now excerpt from with the stage, and I was invited for a show in Turin. There were, I don't know how many, 21 regions in Italy, and they were invited 21 artists to visit one region of Italy. I was in Sardinia, and then the aim was to find something really interesting. And for me, the most interesting thing I found was this Montonus, the carnival from Sardinia, with these really old pageant costumes, which are very similar to, because I was grown up in Karlsruhe, where you have the Alemannische Fastnacht, also from Black Forest, and these, which is interesting, and these costumes were really close to what I know from costumes from Black Forest. And this stage I found also when I was there and I visited the carnival, there are many stages in many villages all over when there is Fastnacht at this special time in the year, where they have little representations, and they just rebuild the stage. What I found, and I really like this roughness that you just take wood from the forest and you put it together, and it's a stage, and it's not even there's just a chair to step on. And then I found an old sail, and I liked it in this setting that it gets also something. I mean, it's not really a boat, but it could read also like this against the sun. But I don't know how to show you the film. This is also a loop, and when I showed it. I shot this with 60mm, and also the sound is directly on 60mm. It comes out from the projector, and I wanted also that it looks like a bit like school films. When I still was in school, I remember that we had in geography or something still 60mm films, and it could also look like a film found to show pupils how Carnival in Sardinia is, like an old found footage. And the film, this dance, what they are doing, this kind of steps, exactly this dance they're doing around every fire. There are like 30 fires in this village, for example, Manuiada, which is in the center of Sardinia. They do it around every fire. So where the camera is actually is the camera, and the camera is turning against the people. And what for me was really interesting, because this is a pageant habit, of course, and that when the carnival begins, the priest from the church has to go 3 times around the mother fire of the village, with the whole people, with all believers behind him, and then to enlighten the other fires, you have to take the fire from the mother fire. And for me, it was so interesting to see that the church is coming. I mean, this was there many thousand years before the church came, but then the church says, "Oh no, we take it. It's us who will. Who will make who will like baptize, or how is it called? The fire." And I did the opposite. I went to a kind of cloister. What you see, this architecture, this is like a cloister. There's a church, and this little Hütten, these little huts, yeah, where they come to make parties for San Giacomo 3 times a year. So I made this way back. And this was the first work I saw. I showed you with the old with the curtains, with the objects. These were curtains I found actually like this, and that was the back side of a curtain, which was really long time exposed to the sun, but it folded. So it's like a photogram of a curtain on a fabric dyed by the sun. And then I put also these objects, a circle and these sticks. And there are also cat ties in the door as a little curtain. And you see even the balcony, I found it in Paris, and you see, in my opinion, it was in this kind of old Haussmannian flats where you have this balcony and where comes only a little sun and then the window up. Here's the box, open from the film. It's not the same box. And these ribbons, they played in 3 films of me, and in 3 films these ribbons were a big knot. And I really like to repeat things, but also to have the same things in new pieces in another state. So this knot, finally, I could delete it, and they are in order in this box now. This was in Glasgow, in Common Built in a space in Glasgow, and when you came down the stage, I wanted to have this kind of audience that you come down and you were watched by a lot of people in the theater. Sorry, this is again a Chorspiel. Just have to switch this fast. And this was the canvas. My first idea for this canvas was in Baroque theater. There was existing this prospect which was moving, and because a lot in the text which I wrote for Chorspiel is about time, and every generation sees differently time, and of course, also we know it when in different ages our perception of time is completely different. So to visualize time passing by, this was the first I did, I wanted that the landscape is moving, but it was really complicated, the construction, and then we moved it and you couldn't hear anymore the choir, so I rolled everything out of this was still a performance, and I couldn't do it like this, unfortunately. And this was the performance with the old father. And again, as you see, that this is the same. This curtain is the same as the spiral. And I also like when I'm invited for shows to reinvent architectures, that it's always it's always site specific, and to reuse things and to reinvent for the same things, new spaces. And also what I did here for kiosk, but first I showed the film Shadow Play in New York in this tent, which was actually not really nice because there was no money for a nice fabric tent, so I had to use this beer party tent. We painted it from outside, but to say no, here we have this really, because it's the same, nearly the same space kiosk. We have this incredible architecture, and to use it, and I was trying to redo this that people are sitting on a tribune and looking like you now, so you will have the exact same situation kiosk in my show, to look at the film and to make like a theater with a retrospective projection. And this is the choir of this. And this is in Düsseldorf in a show, and it's about Carnival again, and on one side is a really long space, hallway, and then the one side all these kind of costumes figured looking at you, and on the other side are the shadows of these figures, and the shadows are much bigger than the figures itself. And it's like a collage of different kind of images I found of Carnival, and they're staring at you. And this was in Warsaw, and it was a show where you couldn't enter. It's a show which was on 24 hours. So every artist had one of these vitrine-like spaces, and I wanted to do something that you look through a curtain and you see other curtains, and you don't know really where you are or what side you are or what kind of are you from the back of the stage, or is it set up, or what is behind? You couldn't really look also through everything, and there's this wooden floor like in the stage, and the ropes which are hanging around. And I had the big luck to get original curtains from the opera house in Warsaw, from the 60s or 70s, with really nice colors. And this is a collage of different, watercolors and cutouts. Again, the walking stick and the chessboard, which is also something which appeared a lot. And then I do also sometimes watercolors, and these watercolors are made on tissue paper, which is really thin. And the aim is that I try to disappear them, that I paint them and then I throw a lot of water on it, and this time I turn the form and the water is dripping down to make them nearly disappear. They're about to disappear. And I don't know how long time I still have, but I could finish with this work. The show was called Wagon Wheel, and I was doing a residency in Memphis, Tennessee, and I was hit on a story or a legend that quilts helped slaves to find the freedom, and that there was a big organization. The name was Underground Railroad, which helped slaves to find the way to Canada, which was where they didn't have slaves, and there were these kind of codes or hidden codes in the quilts, and there was a quilt which, for example, wagon wheel, which you see in the center, which says there will be a wagon waiting for you, or another quilt. There were also another quilt which is saying take all your tools with you. It will start really soon, or just a quilt hanging out of a window just to tell them we help you. You can stay in our house and we give you a warm meal. And what I did was it's like a giant quilt, from a giant quilt, and I cut out with scissors a piece. So the motive of this quilt is much bigger, like it is in real, because it's more like this in real. And also the stitch, the quilting stitch, which is always going through all layers, is bigger, and makes also something like a way or like a trace. And all the fabrics, like again in the other curtain I showed you, all these fabrics I found on flea markets or are other stuff. I buy clothing and then I cut out pieces, and they are hanged in the gallery like a kind of also like a kind of stationing 7 quilts. This quilt is not go on the hill, not on the mountain, go around. And then after the last quilt, I showed the film The Object, which has also something to do with the show I just did in Rome with these hanging objects. And here are objects in a long row, and the camera, the 16mm camera, is going straight, and all objects are falling down, and the objects get like marionettes. So what I did with what I told you first with the tableau vivant, that people are moving, I mean somehow taking life from living persons, this is the opposite way to give life to dead objects and to give them like a kind of individual way to move. So every object moves in a different way, and all objects are related to by work the fan, which is coming back, the curtain afterwards. Then there's also a ribbon and a chessboard, the crystal from the fortune teller, the shirt. Yeah, I can stop now, or I can I can continue. I don't know, because you said I heard 45 minutes is some.
No, it's not.
It's the format.
Yeah, maybe there are some questions.
Is this a musical piece?
Yes, no, we are curious, of course.
Yeah, this is a piece I showed also in Belgium, in the Stuk, exactly, in Leuven. And I did it with 4 other artists together, and they are playing these organs which are coming from church, and it's a very static music. They play like for 2 minutes, one chord and then another and then another, and then we found but this is in the Centre Pompidou. We showed it like 4 or 5 times already, this performance. And then we have a person who is synesthete. That means like Kandinsky was a synesthete. That means that the senses are mixed. That in this case, that if you hear music, that you see, or they don't. The synesthete wouldn't say they see colors, they feel colors. But synesthesia can also mean that you eat something and you hear music, for example, or you smell something and you I don't know, and you see colors. I mean, it's all crossed the senses. And we developed this card game of I don't know how many, like 200 different colors. And the person, the synesthete, is interpreting on stage live what he's hearing with this card, and then this card, for example, what he was listening to, is projected on a screen, and it's like 50 minutes the performance, and it's very slow, but you can also you can follow the synesthete. And we did it with 4 different synesthetes, and every synesthete has of course another logic, because it's not a science. If somebody hears the one note, the same note for one it's red and for the other it's green. It's very different. Yeah. You don't have any questions?
Now you have to explain this.
Okay, then I can show this. This is the first drawing of the film Singspiel, and I filmed a film in the Villa Savoie from Corbusier, which is close to Paris. And I was also, like in Vorspiel, I did an architecture for this film, so I was redrawing with fabric the way of the camera in the house. And when you are entering this architecture of fabrics, you are making the same way as the camera, of course abstract, until you come in the last space on the left to see the film projected on this canvas. This was in Wens, in the Vienna, from outside. And the doors are always the doors, also from Corbusier, not this height, but 90, I forgot the measurement, it's a strict measurement, all doors, 93, I think. The black is always the doors, and then there's this special Corbusier colors of this kind of pink and blue, dark blue, light blue. And then in the end, you see the film on this blue curtain and the chairs, because this Villa Savoie is a museum and it's nearly empty, and there is only some of this Corbusier furniture inside, what I didn't want to use. And so I had to use, I needed chairs, and I wanted to have the same stools where the visitors are sitting on as the actors in the film. And the film starts, and it's also shot in 60mm. I shot my films sometimes when there's money on 60mm, and if there's no money, I shot it on video. But I really like to shoot on 60mm because it's so, I mean, you can't cheat in a way. And it is what it is, and also all my films are always without cut. There is never a cut, so it's always like a film performance, and this is for me very, very close also to film, because film I could never make more like 3 or 4 times the whole take, and then in the end I have to choose one, and there is never one perfect one. It's always here he looks there, and I don't know. It's for me it's really, it's also close to theater, because every performance is different. And this man is coming to the house carrying a box, again a box. And then there are different things happening. A family is sitting around the table, and the story is that this old woman you see in the center, it was her house, and it's the last meeting of the whole family around this table, and they are singing about the house and about their time, but then also they are singing about their relationships in the family. And for me, the story I invented was somehow, and they're all singing with my voice, so that also the whole film could be read like one person. I mean, the house as a person, there's many characters as the many characters of one person, but everybody has the same voice, and also the man and the woman's voice. And I did a mixture about perhaps part of my own history, of my grandmother and grandfather's house, and the real story from the Savoie. They like built the house from Corbusier in the 30s or 29. They started, and it was their reception and weekend house, and the house was ready, but because Corbusier was building, it was really new to build with all these materials coming out from industrial building. It was not really approved, so the isolation was really bad. The roof was flat, so it was pouring in rain. It was really cold, and the son of this family, Savoie, was ill. He had a pneumonia, and it got worse and worse in this house. And there is a letter exchange between Corbusier and Madame Savoie, telling this house is not good. Please do something. And Corbusier is constantly responding, you have the house of one of the most important architects from the 20th century. This is enough. This is all what you need. And for me, it was interesting how architects have this kind of utopian, or this idea of utopia, or how people should live there. Also, Mies van der Rohe, for example, who also had a really precise image about that the people living there don't have the right of curtains, or don't have the right of flowers in front of their windows, but then in the end there are people living there and they want flowers and they have problems. So in this house of Corbusier, which is also, I think, this kind of architecture is so clean, which looks actually only good with Corbusier furniture, because when you see the furniture of the Savoy, they had this kind of 50s really ordinary furniture. It looks really ridiculous and really lost in this big house. And I lost the ribbon. But also this idea of and then at the top space he has a solarium, a kind of roof, like a sunroof where you should bathe your naked, healthy body in the sun. And after the discovery of Freud of psychoanalysis, and it's possible to clean yourself and to not have so many problems anymore. You don't need all this stuff. What Benjamin, for example, is still saying that the Sammler, the collector, who needs all these things, and in his velvet canapé with a trace of his ass, this all you don't need anymore. But then in real, of course, this family had a lot of problems, and these problems they are seen in the film. And then in the end, this is actually Lucienne Deschamps is her name, which is my favorite actress, and you will see her Friday in 2 films. And she's preparing for the last scene where, and this is the last scene in the film, and it's again the theater. The boy, you see also ill, the boy of Savoy, who has pneumonia, he's lying in the bed, and then on the stage he's again lying in the bed, and the daughter and the sister are around him, and the daughter is singing to him, "You are always ill, it's easy to be the ill one in the family because you never take responsibility," and they're just repeating what they were singing before. Thank you very much.
Any questions? She didn't show you slide that it was over.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I saw the piece in Venice, and I remember so vividly walking that pathway, and it felt so specific. So I was extremely, I really appreciated you saying exactly how you came into that construction, the camera angles. It added now in retrospect to the piece, which I really loved. The installation and the experience of watching the film after that sort of total removal. Thanks.
Yeah. No, I mean, this kind of architecture is also to make you more receptive for the film. It's like a preparation, yeah, for the film.
It worked.
Nobody else? I can't see it.
You don't have a question? A question many people ask me is, why are you shooting always on black and white? You don't have this question? Then I don't respond.
So are you yourself a very active collector of these curtains and these fabrics and all these, you say, I found it.
Yeah, I'm an active collector. I mean, I'm not that, unfortunately I don't have a big house or a big storage because I live close to Paris where space is really expensive, and it's really a problem for me. I love to go to flea markets and find old fabrics, but then I have the problem where to put them. But this is one big part of my work is that.
Do you start your work with what you found, or you go the other way around? You have an idea and then you start, you have looking what you have and what you still need to find.
It can be both ways. The piece I showed you where I just found actually this curtain made by the sun, I didn't do anything for it. It was the fastest piece I ever made because I just found it and I put it on the wall. This I found, but then it inspired me, of course, to this show what you saw in the beginning, and then I wanted to redo this.
Why are your films done in black and white?
My films are black and white of many reasons. One reason is to extract information. I think color is really a lot of information. Already, if I would use 60mm color material, there is a lot of information. Then you would know, for example, what kind of year, much more what kind of year it is. This violet she wears was really fashionable, I don't know, 2001 perhaps. So you would know a lot more. And my aim is with my films that they look somehow timeless, to put out information. Of course, these films couldn't be made in the 50s or the 60s. This you see, but you don't see that it's made 2009 or 11. And this is also when I'm about clothing, that the clothing is somehow, they don't wear sneakers or jeans, that you're not anymore in a very specific moment, that you lose this and it gets more abstract, so that the content hopefully is coming more out if all this kind of around information is away. And then black and white, of course, also this cutouts I do is also about, it's always about eliminating information, and I think black and white is doing it and putting you somehow more easily to the content. And then also black and white and film, of course, it's a very, what I said already, it's a very, but this is not the question actually. No, it's a very limited material. With video, for example, you could shoot hours and hours.
But you refer also to cinema, not only
Yeah.
theater.
Yeah.
There's a lot of references to cinema itself. Also the way how the music is dubbed refers maybe even to cinema before it was sounds.
Yeah, but also that there is a gap. Often, I mean, I always dub the sound, and then often you will also see on Friday, sometimes the mouths are not fitting at all to what you hear. And one thing I think is really interesting, when you hear something and you see something in the same time, that your brain is always trying to connect it. So if you hear, for example, in this film, my voice with a man's mouth, which is not even really in the good moment, your brain is connecting it, and you think, this man has a woman's voice. I mean, this is really interesting, and to make a kind of, let's say also to make a kind of absurd gap in between that.
But you make it also clear because it's not perfectly done. You saw it in the Schauspiel before.
Yeah.
You see the lips moving, but it's not like perfectly synchronized. So
but to handle the image and the sound really as two different things, and to put them together, but not really.
Is it more the concern of having it clear for the audience that this kind of dubbing, this kind of effect you create by once you see the lips moving and then you have a sound, or is it more the idea of having this low technological or this easy technological solution to this?
It's also the low. I love low tech, of course, and I love that. Also, for example, from Mamotonus, when the sound is coming out of the 60mm projector, and it's really bad sound and you hear the screws in the projector mixed up with the sound to have the sound as a sound. It's not normal. It's not normal to have the sound of something. It's to have it as something added to it, or to make it also more conscious. It's a conscientizing of the image and the sound.
I have a question also, but also about the films, like the sound we hear in the film, like in the choir, you would show it, like was it the quality of the sound, you would show it this way, or was it also 8mm and it would
No, Korsmir, the film with the choir, this I shot on HD because there was no money for 60mm, and when I show it in the show, then it's shown with boxes and normal. I mean, there the bad quality is only that it's not sync always.
To me, it was very clear the connection between this work and then the textile pavilion you had to go through in Venice to see the video is very clear. But then some other works, like for example in this apartment in Paris, it was really clear for me what the connection is with the video work over there, the mirror video work, and then the textile work, how it relates to video. Because I know it was mirrored as well. But I noticed that you always combine this textile work, this very architectural textile work, with the video, and I wonder how you think about that. How do you make this connection? Is it just like you add the history that the fabrics had to this practical history to this story, or
No, but I mean this diamond curtain, it's less because it's less zwingend. What do you say? I could also show this curtain with another film. It was not really together, and also I showed this film here without the curtain. It was just that I wanted to show it twice, and I had this curtain already twice, and also mirror, and I thought, it's nice. And then there were these two spaces similar, and I wanted to have this déjà vu that you kind of have a oops, I have been here already, but everything is flipped. I wanted to have this. But then, of course, this curtain for me is always linked to theater, and also on what kind of side are you behind the curtain or in front of the curtain, what happens when the curtain opens, and then the actors, which are playing actors in the film, that was more this link. But it was less spatial, of course.
Do you have a musical background yourself? Because at one point you said you were singing the melodies of all the actors. I mean, who writes or composes the melodies for the choir piece, for instance? Do you do it all yourself, or you work with?
No, I didn't do all myself. My dream was always to compose an opera, even though I'm not a composer. I mean, this is still my dream, I have to say. And then I started, and then I recognized or discovered that I'm not able to. I mean, I'm playing piano myself, but I can't write notes, like different notes, chords. And then I was writing one line, like one melody, what I was singing at the piano, and then the choir conductor was a composer himself, and he was translating this music into what you hear. So he split it up, my one line into the chords.
Yeah, so he made the harmonies and the
He made the harmonies, exactly.
combinations of the different voices.
Yeah, and I said, okay, here we need unisono or polyphone music.
Okay, Ulla, thank you very much. I would like to invite everybody on Friday evening for the opening of the exposition. You are very curious now. Thank you.